Welcome to Creative Tien channel. Today I want to do a hand knitted ball versus the machine knitted ball. If you want a specific pattern, you can search Pinterest. There are a lot of different patterns, and you can also make your own. They basically look like that with 4 parts to create a ball. It's like the top of the head. You can separate into several sections and decrease each section. And once you learn how to knit a ball, you can add different patterns, do some Fair Isle color knitting, or different textures. And first I will start with the hand knitting. We are going to knit in a round. You can use a set of the double point needle, or you can use the long circular needle and do the magic loop. I decided to use my circular needle. I have 5mm for the worsted weight yarn and 4 markers. And first we cast down 12 stitches. And then we will knit 1 round. When we knit this one, we will place the marker. Since we have 12 stitches, every section will have 3 stitches. So I can have 1 marker first. And then 3 stitches. Next marker. Now we can start knitting in a round. Now we have 3 stitches on each section, so we are going to knit 1 stitch, increase 1 in between those 2 stitches, and knit the center one, and increase another 1 between those 2 stitches. And we do the same in the 4 sections. For the increase, it will be best if we do the make 1 to the right and also make 1 to the left. It's a M1R and M1L. So we start with knitting first stitch. And then M1R, lean to the right first. You want to use the left needle, pick up the bar in between from the back, and then we knit from the front, knitwise. That's M1R. And we knit 1 more stitch. M1L, it's the same except we don't pick it this way, we pick it from the front to the back. So the right leg will be in the front, and we knit from the back side, like that. So that's how we do the M1R and M1L. And we just keep doing the same. Knit M1R. The left leg will be in the front, and you knit from the front, knitwise. And then knit M1L from front to the back. So the right leg will be on the front, and we knit from the back. And we continue knitting. And I want to make sure it will be circular knitting, so I can pull out the needle. So arrange needle like that, and we will continue knitting. And the next row will be just plain knitting for 1 round. And we just keep repeating these 2 rounds until the size we want. It will be 1 increased row and 1 plain knitting. Now we are at the next round of increase. You knit 1 stitch, and then do the increase. Make 1 R and knit from the front. And keep knitting until the last stitch, and then make 1 left, knit to the back, and then knit the last stitch. And we do the same in every section. Knit 1, increase, knit until the last stitch, increase, and knit 1. And the next round will be knit again. Now I finish all the increase. I have 11 stitches on each section. I just did the last increase. Now I'm going to do the middle part. You'll be just straight plain knitting. And I'm going to knit around 8 rows. It should be about 1/3 of the ball, but it's really up to you. You can make it longer. There's really no rules. So I'm going to do the plain knitting for 8 rows, and I will come back for the decreasing. Now I need about 8 rows plain in the middle. We can start to do the decrease. And it will be similar to the increase. We separate into 4 sections, but instead of make one right and make one left, we do knit 2 together and SSK. So we have knit 1, knit 2 together, knit until the last 3 stitches, and we do SSK. That's slip, slip, knit. And we'll do the same for every section. And every other rows it will be knit until we return back to 3 stitches for each of the 4 sections again. So let's start with knit 1. Knit 2 together. Keep knitting until the last 3 stitches. And then we do the slip, slip, knit, slip, slip, and knit 2 together. And the last stitch will be knit. So we have a symmetrical decrease. When we have 5 stitches in each section, that's the last decrease round. And we don't have enough stitch to do the same knit 2 together and SSK. So we are going to do a different stitch called SK2P. Basically, you knit 1 stitch and then slip 1 stitch, knit 2 together, and pass the slipped stitch over. So for this decrease, it's more centered for the stitch. It's not leaning left or right. And I will show you one more time. The next section, you have 5 stitches, knit 1. We do the SK2P, slip 1 purlwise, knit 2. Pass a slip stitch over and knit the next stitch. And we'll continue for all 4 sections. After the last decrease, we have 3 stitches in each section, and we are going to knit 1 round of plain knitting and cut piece of yarn, thread it through every stitch and pull it tight. Now before we close the holes, we have to put in some stuffing. If you have the polyester stuffing or any scrape yarn or fabric, you can put it here before we close it. After the stuffing, it looks like a ball now. And we just cut the yarn tail, thread it, and go through every stitch and pull it tight. And we'll do the same on the other side. And you can sew a few stitches to tighten it up a little bit more and close the hole. If you want it as a Christmas tree decoration, you can crochet a chain or just tie a knot so you have a loop. If you look from the top, you can see the 4 sections, just like the top of the head. And that's the part with plain knitting, so we can have any kind of design here. such as a fair isle. And we can give it a steam so the stitch is more even. So next I'm going to show how I make it on a knitting machine. Here is a typical pattern. I have totally 11 stitches on the widest part. And for the machine knitting, I will start with here and start with waist yarn, knit the plain row, and then decrease. And then I'm going to take it off, turn it upside down, hand it back to the machine, and we'll do the other side of the decrease. I find it easier than doing a lot of increasing and decreasing because that's a lot of hand manipulation. Sometimes hand knitting is much easier because the project is very small and you can play with different kind of pattern and texture. There's limit on the machine. Some stitches are difficult to make. But on the other hand, if you have the patterning device, you have the punch card, you can make an interesting design very quickly, at least in the center part, and then you can just decrease. Since each section has 11 stitches and we have 4 sections, so the total will be 44 stitches. So we are going to use the waist yarn to cast on and cast on 44 stitches. I start with a few rows of waist yarn. My stitches are from left 22 to right 22, and I'm using the Brother 260 bulky, but you can work on any machine. I'm not using the Reaper for this project. Now I change to my main yarn and knit about 9 rows. If you want to do any pattern or texture, these are the rows you can play with. Now after 9 rows, I'm starting to decrease. And I'm going to separate into 4 sections. Each section has 11 stitches. So the same as hand knit, I'm just going to decrease 2 stitches in each section, leaving the first stitch and the last stitch plain knitting, and then decrease by moving the stitch over. So each section will have 2 decrease. And after this decrease round, we will have 1 row of plain stitch, and we'll just keep repeating that. You can use your transferring tool, 2-prong, 3-prong, and if you have garter bar, you can use garter bar too, because there's a lot of transferring stitches. So I'm going to transfer the first decrease. That will be the second and third one. And I try to move everything toward the center so it's easier. Move the second one to the third. And we also need to move the first one in. That's 1 stitch decrease. When you move the stitch, make sure the needle go back to non-working position. So here is after my first transfer. You see the second and third stitch together, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 together, and then 11, and there will be an empty needle here. And the same with 1, 2, and 3 together, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 together, and then empty needle. And then 11, and we just continue doing the same. And when I'm doing the transfer for each section, I try to move the outer stitch toward the center of each section. So this one goes to that, the second one goes to the third one. And now we just need to transfer all the stitches so there will be no more empty needle in between. And that's very straightforward and tedious. You just use a transferring tool to move by hand one by one. And this is my center, so I like to move everything to the center. It's easier. I try to move my needle out so make sure it doesn't drop stitch. We are done with the right side. I'm going to continue the left side. All the left stitches move to the center. Now we finish all the transfer. There's no empty stitches in between. And make sure all the empty needle go back to non-working position, and we can knit one plain row. And then keep repeating the same process until you only have about 12 stitches left. For the second decrease, each section has only 9 stitches, so we can count the first one here. The second and third will be together. That's one stitch decreased. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That will be the first section. So the second and third stitch from the right, we move it to the center of that section. And then we count it again. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we move this one. Now we move to the right side. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So one, two, three. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we just have to transfer stitches toward the center so there will be no empty needles. So just like before. In the next decrease row, I have 5 stitches in every section. So I'm going to turn the middle 3 stitches into 1 stitch. So this is my middle stitch. I move the left stitch to the right and right stitch to the left. So there are 3 stitches in this needle. And we do the same for every section, and we will transfer all the stitches toward the center to take away the empty needles. Now after this decrease, we will only have 3 stitches on each section. Now we only have 12 stitches. We can knit one last row and then knit a few rows of waste yarn and take it off the machine. That's what it looks like. We have one side done. We just need to hand it back to the machine again. Pick up all the stitches and hand it back, all 44 stitches, and do the same for the other side. And then we can sew up the sides and it will become a ball. So I need the stitches from right 22 to the left 22 again, and hand the stitches back one by one. So I just put it back one by one and repeat the same process again. I end up finish the decrease by hand knit because I find it kind of tight to do it on the machine. It's easier to do the decreasing by hand. So maybe you can combine both machine knit and hand knit. If you have punch card, you can design the center part and take it off the machine to do the decreasing. Thank you for watching today. I hope you like this video and see you next week.